Hey everybody, I hope and pray that you're doing well. Today as we come to our word from the word, and today that word is finished. Finished. Now, if you've been watching with us daily, you saw Friday was go and get started on the work, and today we're skipping ahead to Second Chronicles chapter 5, looking at the first verse, and you're going to see that the temple work is completed. So let's jump right in and read that passage first, and then we'll get on with our study today. So 2 Chronicles 5 verse 1 says, So all the work that Solomon had done for the house of the Lord was finished. And Solomon brought in the things which his father David had dedicated, the silver and the gold and all the furnishings, and he put them in the treasuries of the house of God. Now, with that, you may say, okay, well, that's great. It's done. But what you don't see is if you read through those passages where we left off last week and up to today, if you see all of that, you'll see all the details of things that were mentioned. And just to give you a little idea of what had gone on, just to think before we just jump here and say, okay, well, everything was finished. How often do we forget about the finish line? And not just our whole time here on earth, but there's things that God gives us to do, and when we accomplish them, there are some things we need to do as we finish them, as we're doing work for the Lord. And I pray you'll be able to see that this week. But to give you a few details about the temple, okay, so it was 90 feet long, it was 30 feet wide, and 40 feet high, so about 2,700 square feet. Now, you may already be thinking, okay, some of you may have houses with more square footage than that, and you think, well, man, our churches are have much more square footage than that. But this at the time too, the size was not really what was the main. I don't want to say the main attraction. That wasn't the thing that really stood out. It was the detail that stood out. It was the time that was taken to do everything according to the Word of God. And so it was, even with that, it was double the size of the tabernacle that moved from place to place. But this was going to be the permanent residence. It was a permanent house for God. So the glory was in the details and not in the size. And ultimately, the glory was going to be whose house it was. It was the house of God. But it would be that permanent structure. But just to give you a couple figures real quick, it had over 4,000 tons of gold. Think about that. Over 4,000 tons of gold. Now, if you thought that was a lot, how about 38,000 tons of silver? And then it was so much bronze, iron, wood, and stone that it wasn't even, they didn't even measure it. It was like, we can't even keep up with that. But even to think about those 4,000 tons of gold alone, 23 tons were used to overlay the Holy of Holies alone. Just that one part where the presence of God would settle in. The whole outside of it was made of limestone and of cedar and gold. There's one point in the temple where it's 3 stories high. I mean, you think about all this, and even the solid stone doors, right? They were cut off site and brought in so that no iron tool was used there in the temple while it was being built. All this, and it didn't just happen overnight. See, as we read last week, that he began the work. Well, some hundreds of thousands of workers in on this over the 7.5 years it took to complete. And then here we read today, and the work was completed. Now, let's make sure that everything that we do for the Lord, that we see every detail is done according to his plan, that everything is done according to his will. But see, there took planning, it took execution. But also when we finish, it's easy for us to just sit back and say, whew, we're done. It's one thing that you've probably heard in your lifetime, that it's one thing to start well, but we especially want to make sure we finish well. And I think really that is our heart set on doing what God has called us to do and seeing it to fruition, seeing it to completion. So what is it? Maybe, we all have to-do lists and things that don't get checked off nearly as soon as they should. But today, maybe my encouragement for you today, and maybe a time of reflection for all of us that I pray we'll see this week, is what is it today that maybe God is calling you to finish? to wrap up this one part, to finish, tie it up, put that bow on that last little detail that needs to be done, so that God has called you to do will be complete. And then doesn't mean you're done. It just means you're done with that, and you can move on to the next. Because how many times have we said, okay, well, I'm going to pray a little bit more. I'm going to read this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to speak to this person and witness to that person. And we kind of get started, but we never finish. So today, what is it that God's asked you to complete? And what is it that you need to finish today? God bless you, and I pray you have a great, great day.